Hello everybody. I know that the idea of a YouTuber with principles may sound like an oxymoron, like a politician with a conscience. However, I like to believe that done right, it's not an impossible task. And here on this channel, I would like to think that I've largely succeeded in creating content that is, first and foremost, enjoyable to watch. But on occasion, I do dabble with slightly more serious topics, and such has been the case with a few recent videos discussing EVs, one in particular where I talked about something called EV poverty, a very serious topic that I do believe requires some considerable discussion. And whilst I stand by absolutely everything that I said in that video, another core belief that I have is balance. I have done a piece now talking about the many bad things surrounding electric cars, and so I feel I am duty bound to do one where I talk about the lighter, the more positive side, if you'll accept the terrible pun. And so today, this dedicated, dyed-in-the-wool petrolhead is going to be giving you 5 reasons why I genuinely believe that EVs aren't all that bad and do have a very good side to them. And in the interest of maintaining that balance, today I'm delivering this lecture on why EVs are great from behind the wheel of a 2007 twin-turbocharged 4.8 litre V8 Porsche Cayenne. I'm doing this here rather than in my office because I believe many of you prefer my talking heads to have a slightly more interesting background. If you do, please tell me, or if you prefer the serenity of my evil volcano lair / edit suite, please hop into the comment section and tell me, because it'd save me a lot of fuel. And also, in the interests of balance, because I am currently driving this car off to be serviced, and I think it might be burning a little bit of oil, I should probably tell you about my sponsor, CarVertical. So, if you're on the hunt for a new-to-you car, whether you're looking at a dirty old V8 turbo or the latest Tesla, don't forget to do a CarVertical search, because in just 60 seconds, a CarVertical search will give you all of the information you need on any potential used car purchase, including potential mileage issues, accident damage, regardless of whether a car was written off or not, usage as a taxi, and outstanding finance. They'll even give you common hints and tips and things to look out for on some of the more popular models. For a special discount, don't forget to check my link in the description down below. So then, on with today's video, and for those of you who haven't seen the previous video, I'll give you the short version. I believe that EVs are a generally good thing. However, because they're currently experiencing very rapid development, the technology in many ways is still quite immature, and they're very expensive, both to buy and here in the UK to run as well. Combine this with the fact we're going through a cost of living crisis, and I believe right now is the worst possible moment to be trying to force them on anyone, which is exactly what our government and many others around the world are trying to do. I would like to see a future where the solution offered to people is one that fits their particular needs. And I have a great belief, like I said, this is all about balance, that anything in life rarely can be answered with one simple solution for everybody. That's just not how life works, is it? After all, you couldn't pick a meal that suits everybody's needs. You couldn't pick a piece of clothing that suits everybody's needs. You couldn't even pick a watch that suits everybody's needs. Things are complicated. Transport doubly so. Anyway, enough dilly-dallying, shall we? Let's get on to my 5 points, and we'll start, naturally, with number 1, which is that, though I certainly agree that EVs may not be quite as perfect as some make them out to be, let's also acknowledge that neither are combustion engine vehicles. However, the benefit of an EV is that, though right now perhaps powering them isn't as green as we would like, or as cheap as we would like, this hopefully will improve. And the benefit of the EV is that it really doesn't know where its electricity has come from. It doesn't know what it has cost. So, as things develop, as solutions improve, as technology develops over time, even the EVs which exist now will improve. They can automatically become greener. Plug them into a solar farm rather than a coal-fired power station, they are just greener. therefore better for the environment. This is a tangible improvement that can and hopefully will be made. I'm personally a big proponent of nuclear power, but that is very, very controversial. The point really though is that you can power your EV however you like, and yes, we've all seen those funny little comic strips of someone that's charging their Tesla off a diesel generator, but the fact is, if I've understood this correctly, that is actually still a more efficient way of burning the diesel than simply burning it in your car directly. Strange, I know, but apparently true. And this leads me neatly onto point number 2. You see, a lot of moaning is done about EVs as if they are an entirely new concept, where the truth is that actually most of the vehicle is simply an evolution, or not even that, of what we have in terms of normal combustion engine vehicles. And a lot of people moan about EVs saying, well, they don't do this, they don't do this, they don't do this, they don't do this. But the fact is, the bit about them that isn't any good is the battery. That really is the one key thing that I think is holding this whole endeavor back. Batteries are big, heavy, very, very impractical, and a little bit tricksy in terms of where the materials come from, how you package them into the vehicle, and many other considerations. But there is another side to this, because though batteries are rubbish, electric motors are not. They're fantastic, very compact, super powerful, very torquey, responsive from essentially nothing, with instant feedback to the throttle pedal, and if done right, they can deliver a genuinely exciting drive. They also mean you can do things like proper torque vectoring, which in a regular combustion engine vehicle are either extremely difficult or simply impossible. Electric motors for me are very, very cool. Of course, not everybody will feel the same way, and I would be the first to mourn many a great combustion engine. If we lose the Porsche Flat 6, the Lamborghini and Ferrari V12, the American V8, that would be a very, very sad day for us all. However, let's be honest with ourselves, the vast majority of cars out there, certainly on the roads of Europe, weren't powered by an iconic engine. They instead had something rather mundane. And the simple fact is, for doing the normal drive-about stuff, particularly in a city, an electric car is just better, and that's thanks to the motors. They make essentially no noise, which to me is preferable to making a bad noise, because you don't have to deal with a dim-witted gearbox. They won't leave you in the lurch at a junction and on a cruise, because they're also nice, quiet, calm and refined. Excuse me. They are lovely, lovely places to be. In fact, to me, it's a shocker that it's taken so long for Rolls-Royce to build an electric car, because if you think about it, it's a perfect fit. You see, a Rolls-Royce is all about having prodigious power, plenty of torque from low down, which an electric motor gives you, but without a noise to accompany it. They've been trying to silence their engines for ages. An EV is a perfect fit for a Rolls. 911 GT3, I won't try and make that argument, but Rolls-Royce, yeah, and the fact that they're heavy doesn't really make any difference, because a Rolls-Royce was heavy anyway. And the sight of that glorious old Beetle going past does bring us to point number 3. I am genuinely hopeful, as I'm sure everybody watching is, that synthetic fuels will be something that are accepted and available to the masses at some point in the near future. And there are already murmurings amongst various different places that maybe these will be the key to keeping combustion engine vehicles not just on the road, but also on sale. And that is very exciting. But there is a bit of a caveat, which is that even with these zero emissions fuels, what they actually are is zero overall emissions. They use carbon capture to generate the fuel, which is then burnt, just as it currently is, that produces CO2 at the point of driving. So when you're in the car, it is still producing CO2. Overall, it kind of works out. I don't really know the science behind it too much, but that is the general gist. However, as you might imagine, this does not solve the problem of inner city pollution. It might help on a global scale, but on a local one, it doesn't. And I think everything will work a little bit better if people appreciated that these are two different issues that both need to be addressed with a little bit of understanding, care and consideration. On a global front, e-fuel, synthetic fuel, whatever you want to call it, very, very good idea. On a local level, not so much. And for places like London, other cities that are congested and polluted, electric cars with zero local emissions, and that's terminology I'd like to see adopted. Zero emissions is, well, it's just not accurate, is it? A car is going to have emissions associated with it, no matter how hard you really try. We're still a very, very long way from achieving a genuine zero emission vehicle. But zero local emission we have now. And in places like London, those are of huge benefit. We have big, serious air quality problems. So I don't really personally see the issue with saying, okay, you want to drive in London, that you have to do in an electric car. Everywhere else, in the middle of Scotland or somewhere, having something like this isn't really as much of a problem because it's not as much of a problem. Simple as that. I don't really think that's all that complicated or radical. Had enough of this eco-gumph, but you're still tuned in? Well, let me introduce you to point number 4, because that, I think, is a little bit more exciting all round. And that is that I genuinely believe that the arrival of the EV will herald with it a new dawn in automotive design. And this is largely thanks to our friend, the electric motor. Remember him from point number 2? Because they are so compact, you can put electric motors in a variety of different places, often connected directly to the wheel, but not necessarily. And the batteries, same again. Many manufacturers currently are running what's called a skateboard approach. So it's a sort of big flat slab of batteries and you sit on top. That's why many EVs are essentially crossovers or SUVs. But there isn't really anything saying that has to be the way. Just look at the new Maserati Gran Turismo, which is actually available as both combustion engine or full electric. And both versions are gorgeous. The automobile, as a thing of beauty, clearly is not dead. And why am I not surprised? It's the Italians that have proven that. In any case, one of the beauties of an EV is you can put these components in hitherto unthought places. You see, the fundamental issue really is that over the last 30 years in particular, legislation has become increasingly harsh, particularly with regards to crash safety. And I don't think this at all is a bad thing. I don't think we should be frowning upon the idea that to survive a car crash should be a novel thing. However, this does create a real problem for designers. These regulations are the reason that bonnets have been getting higher and higher and higher, and only really stuff like mid-engine cars can have any sort of interesting or unusual front end. This is just a function of the regulations. But because an EV doesn't need to put a great big engine up front, it can put it anywhere that it likes, this gives you a real opportunity for some very, very cool design. We've seen it already with some real super high-end stuff like the Lotus Evija, if it actually ever makes it into production. But I do believe, if we're given the chance, we'll also see it in regular cars too. And I hope we see French companies return to their era of true quirkiness, unusual design. We've even seen a recent return as a popular format to the rear-engined, rear-wheel drive layout, because it actually makes a lot of sense for an EV. Apologies for the incessant beeping, by the way. That's my car's proximity sensors going off because I've got my camera down there. And now, if I paid attention to Mr. Bolton, my maths teacher, and I can remember how to count, we have our 5th and final point. And this, I know, is going to be a controversial one. There are many, many young people out there who simply don't want to drive, but there are also a large number of young people out there who don't want to drive a combustion engine vehicle. And rightly or wrongly, feel free to argue with yourselves in the comment section. I'm not going to get into it on this one. They have come to believe that a combustion engine vehicle is the work of the devil, but an EV is nice, happy, and acceptable compromise perhaps, and something they are happy to drive. And you know something? Maybe I don't have to like the logic behind this, but if by having an EV available to them gets them into a car where previously they would have not, is that really a bad thing? Think of it maybe this way, rather than saying, oh, what silly young people, how dare they, so unappreciative, all this, that and the other. And it's very, very easy to go down that route. But you know, I like to try and keep things on this channel positive and balanced. Why don't we come up with the compromise of this? Let's just all pretend that a Nissan Leaf is a gateway drug to a GTR. After all, was your first car really that exciting? It probably wasn't. It was probably fairly underwhelming, fairly unexciting, a shopping trolley of some description. Maybe it was a 205 GTI, but I wager not. However, if by having these cars out there that are available to young people will get them into cars full stop, maybe over time they'll develop an appreciation for our way of thinking, and they'll come to enjoy stuff like this. I actually recently, believe it or not, got invited to do a cycling podcast with some people called Road.cc. I really enjoyed the experience, and halfway through something dawned upon me, which I suppose I've known and believed for a long time, but by doing the podcast I had to kind of put into words. And that sentiment is exactly appropriate here, which is that I'm sure there are plenty of people out there who've listened to my arguments, they've sat there and they've gone, very, very nice, James, but no thank you, I shall keep my petrol if you don't mind. And I've no doubt there are people out there who've got their Tesla or whatever, are convinced it is the best thing ever, that it is heaven sent, and they've no interest in any dirty, horrible old oil-burning clunker. But if we can all find a bit of common ground, a bit of understanding, we can maybe comprehend each other's position. We don't really have to agree upon it, but if we can all agree to enjoy our things in our own way and be tolerant of each other, that, I think, really is a very, very good thing. And maybe today, if I've just made one person sit there and go, I suppose there's something to that, then I have achieved my goal. I remain firm in my belief that to try and force anything on people, certainly when it comes to electric cars, would be a very, very big mistake. But I also believe that the EV is a vital and important part of our transport future. And I think we're living in very, very exciting times because this technology has already come so very far and it's still got a long way to go. And I personally feel actually somewhat thankful that we exist in a time where I can drive stuff like this if I want to, certainly at the moment, and we're also getting to see the next thing happening. I hope we're going to see a lot more of it, and I'm really looking forward to developments that maybe in 5 years will change everybody's minds and we'll all go, yeah, crikey, yeah, who wouldn't want an electric car? What that's going to be, I couldn't say because it may not exist yet. In fact, almost certainly doesn't. If you've enjoyed today's video, hit the like button. If you haven't, hit the dislike button. Engagement is a good thing, and make sure to comment, and if you have enjoyed the video, subscribe as well. Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye-bye.